Hello, and welcome to the Amongst Romance podcast, your window to everything Italy from an outsider's perspective. Join us each week as we navigate the Italian way of life and all the adventures that come along with it. Today, we have a very special guest on the podcast, and it's somebody that I've met on my travels to Italy who is a local expert. So if you were wondering what visiting Lake Como is about, you are in a great place. Niki, welcome to the podcast.
Hi. Thank you for having me, first of all. A little bit about myself. Okay, so I actually am originally from Bulgaria, but I grew up in America. And a few years ago, I came to Italy to have like a little vacation. I started off in Rome, and then I got a little part-time job as an au pair for a family in northern Italy. So I moved to a little town called Verano Brianza for, I think I was there for about 2 months. And then I decided that I wanted to stay in Italy. And so I was trying to find like every possible way to find a job here, to move here permanently. And I started sending out resumes, and a school in Como actually they found me. They saw my resume, and they asked me for an interview, and I immediately accepted the position when they offered it to me. So that's how I ended up in Como, of all places. And so 5 years later, I am still here, still loving it.
I love those kind of stories because I think you and I in a special sort of situation where we have both moved from North America, but we do have European roots, which allow us to live here, right? So that's a very big plus. I think that I think a lot of people could be envious of that we get to actually come here and stay here. And I think I feel very privileged that I can do that. And I think it gives us a different perspective on, coming to Italy, living here, and actually be able to enjoy everything that it offers.
Absolutely. I think also the fact that we don't go through as much bureaucracy as the others. I think that really helps having European citizenship already, because I know a lot of my friends that are from America that are just go through the never-ending process of paperwork and living here. So for us, it is easier. Not the easiest still, but easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you've lived in Como, you said, for 5 years. So tell me more and tell the listeners, what is it about Lake Como that you stayed there and you think that makes it such a popular tourist destination?
Well, probably one of the main characteristics is George Clooney. No, I'm kidding. He's he's definitely a favorite among the locals. But I would have to say, apart from that, the lake is beautiful. I mean, all of the towns that surround the lake. Of course, you have your towns that everybody knows that it's known for, like Bellagio, Varenna, but there are very picturesque, quaint little towns, even smaller than that, along the way, which I'll probably talk about that a little bit more. But that aside, I think for Como, every single season has so much to offer. Okay, so it's mountainous. It's got a beautiful lake, so perfect for swimming when it's warm outside. In autumn, I mean, the colors changing is just beautiful. In winter, you have the markets. So I think it's just an entire collection of these unique activities that you can do that make Lake Como so well known as well.
I'm sort of envious when you say the leaves are changing colors, because in my part of Italy, we don't have that. No.
It's so magical right now. It's so beautiful.
I do miss it. And, but I think you made a good point, because I think a lot of people think of Lake Como as a town, right? So Lake Como is a lake, but people also think Lake Como is one town, which I think, when you think about it, it kind of it might make sense. But again, there's so many little towns around it that visitors can explore, right?
Exactly. People underestimate how big Lake Como actually is. You know, it's also the province of Como. So it's Lake Como and then the town. So it's a collection of things here. I had a friend that came here recently. It was his first time in Italy, and he was here for a wedding, and he wanted to meet up for drinks, and he was like, Nikki, where are you? And I was like, okay, I'm in Como. I can meet you, you know, wherever you are. And he's like, but I'm in Como too. And I looked at his position, and I was like, well, you're not in Como. You're in a town near Como. And he was like, I thought this was all just like one one town. No, 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 no.
Yeah,
So
and I think that's maybe a mistake people make. So we'll get a bit more into that, but I wanted to talk maybe about what's the best time to visit. You mentioned autumn being a very nice and colorful season, but do you think it's the best time to come, or what can a visitor expect at different times of the year?
right, right. Okay, so I think probably the best time, in my honest opinion, to come here would be spring. Okay, because summer, as much as I love Como, it's so overpopulated in the summertime, and it makes going out into the town just not miserable, but definitely not as enjoyable as when you're going out in spring. Because that's the beginning of the season. A lot of the villas are opening up because that's when the flowers start blooming. You know, spring is all about new awakenings, you know? So, um, the entire, I mean, all of Lake Como in that time period is beautiful. And also, you know, it's easy to breathe outside because in summer it gets so hot and humid. So that would be probably the best season, but it also depends on what you want to do. So as I was mentioning, in winter, because it is very mountainous, I mean, of course, we don't see snow here, not anymore. You know, in fact, it rains quite often. But along along Lake Como, as you head further north, a lot of opportunities for skiing, for snowboarding in those parts of the mountains. A lot of trekking, so that could be interesting for people that want to come here for sports mainly. Yeah, but spring, I recommend spring.
That's good to know. What about like special events? I know here in our part of the world, we do have a lot of festivals in the fall, like harvest festivals. Are those also popular up where you are by Lake Como?
Yeah, right now they've got a lot of chestnut festivals going on. Oh, I love this part of the year as well. I mean, it's very gloomy right now. It's been raining nonstop for I don't know the past week, and it's going to continue to rain until next week. But that's just it's kind of unpredictable right now. It's been a really strange past 2 years. We've been seeing like nonstop rain here. So if you come, I do recommend just always bringing like a poncho, an umbrella, because honestly, you never know. But yes, a lot of chestnut festivals, polenta, pizzoccheri. I don't know a lot of typical mountain food. A lot of pasta. The pizzoccheri is an amazing pasta that we eat up here in the north. Um, in winter, though, with the Christmas period, there are the Christmas markets, which the Christmas lights of Como are known like all over Europe. I mean, certainly not, I'm sure, as big as like you know in Vienna and in Prague, but really magical around that time period. Really, really beautiful.
I love hearing that because it's like I'm comparing your experience to my experience. And, you know, we were pretty lucky that the weather has been pretty good since the beginning of October. We're supposed to get some rain in the next week, starting on the weekend. But we've been pretty good so far that it's been, t-shirt weather pretty much. So again, people coming to Italy don't understand that even though it's a smaller country than let's say US or Canada, but it's still a fairly big country. And depends where you go, the weather can be so diverse, right? And that's really interesting. I think people don't necessarily realize that it can be very different further north than it is, further south where I am. So I'm also glad you mentioned the Christmas markets because when we moved to Italy, I expected like the Christmas markets that we sort of see, like, in Vienna, in like the northern European countries. So where we are, the first year we were here, they didn't really have that kind of thing. We went to Salerno and they had like a light display. They do have like light displays, but they didn't really have like a Christmas market with stalls and, different things. So I was kind of disappointed. Last year, though, we found they had some, like the bigger town next to us had a more of that sort of vibe. So they did have, it's still very more Italian influence. They did have mulled wine, but it wasn't the same because we don't have snow here. And it was very different. So I would assume that because Como is closer to like, the Vienna to Germany, they have a bit more of a Christmas market.
Exactly. I think it's heavily influenced, but because we have a ton of people from Switzerland that come here for the Christmas lights. Now, Switzerland in relation to Como is a 30-minute train ride. So even with car, it's a lot closer as well. So Como is just easily accessible to all of these all these countries around or in Europe, north of Italy. And so, yeah, the Christmas markets last year, we had an ice skating rink. I mean, the buildings have like projections of like Christmas animations. Yeah, the vin brûlé, the mulled wine. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. It's amazing. And we have a lot of German stands like pretzels with meat and melted cheese on the inside. I mean, just amazing. Like local producers of their own wine, of different meats and cheeses, so cured meats. It's really a special time period, not only for children, but for myself, for adults who want to have a little bit of fun too. So it's really special. I really love that period.
I think that's really good to know because again, people tend to think like Italy is a great summer destination, right? Places like Lake Como, you see all the images of everybody like, in the summertime walking around. But I think, if you want to experience a different side of Italy and a different maybe side to Lake Como, again, coming for like a Christmas market and maybe going skiing after is a totally different type of experience, right? That you could still enjoy, but in a different way.
You're absolutely right. And I think in winter, because the season is, well, it's off season, a lot of places are seasonal as well. Maybe restaurants, hotels, even, they close back up. They close up and open back up in springtime. But I would take advantage if people were coming here during that time period. I would take advantage of going out to agriturisme, so like the farmhouses where you have like a quaint little room where there's only like four tables and a fireplace, and eating very heavy mountain food and drinking wine. That's something related to the off season, which I think is really fun as well. Not the typical summer Italian summer, but also Italian summer is really, really fun as well, full of activities out on the lake. So I think it all just depends. But you're right, most people want to come here for the typical TikTok Italian summer ordeal.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I blame them,
Oh
but
God, no, I love it. Yeah.
but if you're looking for like a slightly, different experience that you can say, oh, I went and I saw and like I experienced something that not everybody else gets to experience all the time. Yeah, I agree with you. I think, traveling, like I always say, Italy is great from like October to maybe March, April. I think it's a perfect time. Yeah, it might be a bit rainy, might be a bit cooler, but you're not sweating because heat. Italian summer can be so hot. I don't know about you, but this summer for us here was brutal. It was so
Right. Right. And it's just going to get hotter. I think when you combine that with just people everywhere, it makes it a little bit more stressful, challenging, but beautiful nonetheless, of course. Of course.
So now let's talk about how to get to Como, because I guess, there's lots of different towns people can stay at. It's close to different other things. What do you think is the best way to get to Como, or does it really matter which town you go to?
The best way to get to Como from, let's say, let's say Milan, like you land in at the Milan Malpensa. So that's like the closest airport, I would say. Bergamo is really far. They have a train from Malpensa that takes you to Como, but you have to change in a little town called Saronno. I think that if someone's traveling on a budget, I think that's probably the best way. So the ticket to from the airport to Saronno by train is 11 euros, and then from Saronno to Como, I don't know, I think that's a few extra euros, 3 4 euros. So that would be the cheapest option. Um, Now it's really difficult to find a taxi service that'll take you, from the airport to Como. You can find a taxi. You're just gonna pay, a lot of money. I know Milan has Ubers as well. Como doesn't. Okay, so my best advice for someone traveling to Como would be to take the train from the airport, but also from Milan. If you're in Milan, if you're doing like a little day trip to Como, take the Tilo train. That's like the Swiss train. It gets you from Milan to Como to the center because there are three different train stations in Como city. It's 35 minutes from Milan to Como on the train, and I think there's only like two stops, 2 or 3 stops, so it's perfect. I think that's the best way.
Yeah. So Milan, you said to be the closest airport. Is if somebody's coming, let's say from Switzerland or other maybe Austria, what are some of the other big airports that they can fly into and get to Como?
Malpensa is probably the best, or Bergamo Airport. I think Malpensa is more equipped. It has a large diversity of flights from Europe. Then there's also Linate. That's also another airport. But as far as the closest to Como, that would be Malpensa, definitely, absolutely, yeah.
Excellent. So now let's talk about maybe where people should stay in Como. Because I think, you want to come, you take the train, you get there, but then what town should you stay in? Should you stay in Como or should you stay in a different one? What do you think?
Oh, being that I live in Como, I have to say, okay, everyone stay in my town. But I'm actually against that. I mean, I think Como is beautiful to see. It's definitely out of all the towns, it's definitely the most equipped with things to do, things to see. A lot more shops. Transportation is everywhere here, like buses, trains, the ferry boat. The main point of the ferries is in Como. Um, but I always recommend everybody to do at least 2 days here. 2 days, honestly. I think that's all you're gonna need. Then probably some of my favorite towns, I would say Varenna's beautiful, Bellagio, of course, really. I mean, those are places that you should see, in my opinion. I'm not going to go against them and say, oh, they're too touristic. Yeah, they're touristic, but what place isn't, So I think go for it. Go there, experience it. If you love it, come back. If you don't, move on to another place. One of my favorite places in Como is a little town called Nesso. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, I don't think I have.
It's a very picturesque town. If you're going towards Bellagio, it's on that side of the lake. Okay. It's a small village, and it's nestled between the lake and the mountains. So it's a bit, it's perched up into the mountain. What's really special about this town is that there is a very famous waterfall that is there. It's so, so beautiful. Okay. So what you do is when you arrive to the town, because there is a bus that drops you off there, okay, from Como, there is a bus that drops you off there. And what you want to do is you want to walk down to the shore, to the shoreline. Now, there isn't a beach. It's a very small area where people go swimming, but there's a bridge there. There's a bridge where people jump off of, and it's really famous for that. Yeah, it's really cool. Now, I'm not ballsy enough to do it, but I love watching people do it because it's a really fun activity. And then on the other side of the bridge, like into the mountain, you see the waterfall. It's insane. It's really, really pretty. And this place has a lot of locals. Like if you're going there in spring and the beginning of summer, locals. All right, completely. But what people do now is, the beautiful boats of Lake Como. So they pull up to this waterfall, so everybody see it and take photos because it really is magical. It's really nice. But Neso is one of those towns where it's kind of like stuck in the past. You know what I mean? It's not filled with nightlife. It's very quiet. You're gonna see a lot of locals probably playing cards at one of the bars. This is life there. So if you're looking for something quiet, maybe in spring, or even in autumn, I would stay there. That's one place. That's one that I really love it there. Then probably another beautiful place that I love, and I'll probably speak to you more about this soon, but it's called Osucho. Osucho is another town. It's on the side of Menanjo. Okay, so it's really, really beautiful because in summertime there is a beach lido area, I guess you could say. Okay, so it's public access, and it's this grassy area, so people are sunbathing, having a spritz out on the grass because there's a little bar there, having picnics, and then there's the lake right in front of you, so you're swimming around, and it's full of olive trees, and I mean churches dating back to I think the second century. So it's really it's really, really lovely. I love that town because it's quiet there. It is really, really peaceful. And you have easy access. If you're using the bus or renting a car, you can easily go north up to Menacho or go back south down towards Como. So it's like right in the middle.
So I guess the question would be, how easy is it to get between towns? You've mentioned the bus and driving. So is there like a good connection between the towns? Is there better to take a ferry? Is it better to drive? Like, I guess also depends how long you're staying and what you want to see, right? And if you want to do some trips, I guess it's just trying to understand what's the better way to get around.
This is a difficult question because the transportation system here is a little disorganized, I guess you could say. Now, that's not just Como, that's everywhere in Italy, I'm sorry to say, but they're not exactly very reliable when it comes to the bus system here, uh, honestly speaking. But okay, so there are several buses that take you to the little towns, the towns that I've mentioned. So Nesso, right, like the town with the waterfall. There's a bus that takes you there. Osucho, another bus that takes you there. The only problem that I have to say is that sometimes they can just be canceled without letting anyone know. I mean, they'll completely disappear from the radar because now there's an app to track where the bus is and if it's coming or not. Sometimes it will just completely disappear, which means that some people can get stranded. And I've seen it happen. And I think that's just one of the things you have to be really cautious about. There are buses, but sometimes in the summer, especially, the buses are so packed that if I've seen it where the bus is completely packed. I mean, you're standing on the bus, and because there's a lot of traffic in summer as well. You have to understand that in summer, if you're driving, if you're taking a bus, be prepared for traffic. It's inevitable. And so I've seen it where the bus full of people, and you see out the window, you see like 20 people waiting for the bus. That bus is not going to stop because it's already a hazard, having this many people on the bus. And so sometimes I recommend not waiting until the last possible bus. If you're trying to go back to Como or if you're trying to go somewhere, don't do that. Okay. I say leave at a reasonable hour just to avoid anything like that will come up.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's a good point to make because if you are waiting for the last bus and it comes and it's full and you can't get on it, then you're stuck. As you said, you can't go back. And what do you do? It's not like you can walk there, right?
I've seen people hitchhike, and that's very dangerous. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. Yeah. Now, sometimes, I mean, if you're really lucky, you can find a taxi. You just have to keep calling them because really, there are just no taxis available here, which I really don't like because it is such a touristic place, and then sometimes the taxi people, the workers, employees can also be really sneaky and charge you way more than what you should be charged. So I try to say avoid taxis. I mean, if you have to take one, okay, but you know what I mean? It's just sometimes it's not the best situation. But with buses, just be really, really cautious about times and be prepared. Be prepared. That's all I gotta
Yeah.
say.
Well, but that's a good point because I think if you're planning on coming in the summertime and you think, I look at places like, for example, Cinque Terre, where there's a train that gets you right from town to town. And it's very convenient and it's very accessible, it's fast. When you think of places like Lake Como, again, geographically might be a bit harder to have a bus that goes, I mean, like a train. But I think most people don't, they overestimate how easy it is to get from a place to place or like the distance and the availability. Because you think Como is like a very popular tourist destination. You think they would have, the infrastructure in place to accommodate tourists, like perhaps they do in Cinque Terre, which isn't always the truth, or that's not always the case. And you have to figure out how to make your way from one place to another and see what you want to see, right?
Exactly. And that can also be really scary and stressful, especially if you're like a first time traveler and you're in a foreign country. Maybe you don't speak their language. That can be really nerve wracking. And so, in that moment, being stranded like that, I can understand how terrifying that is. But luckily, I mean, there are always people willing to help, even if I actually had a friend that went into a bar because she was stranded. The bus just didn't show up. And she actually got some locals to take her back to Como, which was really nice. Yeah. And I know okay, that can be a little scary too. But I think if you're willing to do it, why not?
For sure, for sure. Okay, so let's talk about the ferries.
Yes, really amazing activity for everyone. I think that's probably one of my favorite activities to do on the lake is to take the ferry. Also because it's quite affordable. If you do a round trip ticket, like let's say my destination, I would want it to be Bellagio. First of all, the tickets, I think for a reduced, like for a child, I think it's 10 euros round trip. And then for an adult, it's around 20, 21 euros. Um, the only thing I have to say about that is if you're wanting to buy tickets, go online and buy them in advance. Okay. Because often I see now they built a new ticket office on the promenade and it's always just, I mean, full of people. Like there's a really, really, really long line. Okay. So try to buy them online. Now, if you want to do the fast ferry, so because the regular ferry takes you to Bellagio in 2 hours. Okay. So people really, I'm telling you, like the lake is huge. And so I think people also make this mistake because they think they'll get to Bellagio in like 20 minutes. So if you do the fast service, you have to go to the ticket office. You have to physically go there and buy the tickets for the fast service. And that will get you to Bellagio in less than an hour, I would say. Now it stops in maybe two other places. But usually that's everyone's main point that they want to travel to. So it's quite convenient, and obviously it's so beautiful because you have incredible views all around you. You can see even the peaks of the Alps on a really clear day in the distance. So when you're getting closer to Bellagio, so it's really beautiful. Yeah.
I think that's a very good point because I didn't even realize it would take you that long to get on a ferry to Bellagio. I didn't think it would be 2 hours. That is really big.
Bring some snacks and some prosecco because it's a long trip. Yeah. Now, I would say that if I know some people can get like seasickness. So I mean, sometimes if it's really windy, that ferry will bounce you up and down. Okay, so but it's a great way to reach Bellagio without having to go around the curvy roads. Like if you're renting a car, you have to be really cautious about the roads because you're driving in the mountain. And of course, there's going to be some Italian behind you trying to pass you because you're going too slow. So I think that's another thing. If you're renting the car, then be mindful of the road laws of the roads and the fact that parking is not easily found here. So I think those two factors.
Okay, so now let's talk about the local dishes. If someone's traveling to Lake Como, and I always try to say to people, food is not the same in all over Italy. So I wouldn't necessarily go to Como for pizza because I live in the Campania region and pizza here is the best, right? But if someone's coming to Lake Como and that whole area, let's talk about what are some of the local dishes that you would recommend that they try.
Man, I was gonna recommend some pizza, honestly, because I have a there in the center. If you do want really good pizza, I do have to recommend a place called Donnarumma. The owner, Agostino, he's from Pompeii.
Oh,
Actually,
okay,
he makes a damn good pizza.
that's why.
That's a really good place if you want pizza, because I know someone's going to be searching for pizza regardless of where they are. Local dishes. So traditionally, there is misoltini, which is a type of lake fish. Okay, in my opinion, it's very, how do I say, potent. I guess you could say it's very fishy. It's got a very fishy taste. I'm not a fan of it, but it is. You can find that along the at a lot of the restaurants around the lake, or pesce persico, which translates to perch. Perch. So this they often make the risotto with it. So now, okay, geographically speaking, we are in northern Italy, so we tend to have heavier dishes because we have colder season or seasons that are the cold lasts a long time. And so we have, risotto, we have polenta. Polenta is very, very, very heavy, made with, I think, cornmeal. Yes. Pizzoccheri, as I mentioned before. So the buckwheat pasta made with cabbage was very good. Lots of cheese, very, very heavy plates. And so that's another one of these dishes that you're going to find a lot of here. Maybe not so much in Como, like city. If you're going north, that's where you're going to find a lot of these plates, especially in the mountains. That is exactly what you're going to find, as well as brasato di cinghiale selvatico. So that is the braised wild boar. So wild boar, you can find these animals everywhere in the mountains. Okay, so that meat, you can find a lot of the braised meat here in this area. Again, a very, very heavy dish, but packed with flavor, very delicious. So I mean, after you eat that, you're thinking you're not going to eat again for the next 2 days. It's very heavy but delicious, very nice.
That's very interesting because again, well, I don't eat meat, so I wouldn't necessarily partake you on that. But it's I think most people don't realize just how meaty like the northern Italy is compared to the south, right? Not to say that we don't have meat here. There is meat here, and they do have boar. But even just like the common dishes from this area, they're not necessarily meat based, right? And when you look at, as you said, it's further north, it's a colder climate. I think also because it's so north, it also has different cultural influences too, right? So you have like a Northern European type of food, which, I do appreciate too. So it's like some of it's like, maybe I should go there for some cabbage.
Right. Right. You're absolutely right. Now, I mean, because, for example, pizzoccheri, I mean, that's not, traditional to Como, because that's Valtellina. And so we kind of take these foods from everywhere in the north of Italy, and we kind of combine them uh to to have here as well. For Yeah, you guys have a more Mediterranean diet, which I love. I very much love the Mediterranean diet. But also, I will say, in winter it's nice to have this food keep you warm in your belly, so you're well fed for sure. For
Oh
sure.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And even like when we were, I think we went to Lake Garda, and that was an interesting experience because it was so different than from where we are, and there was German spoken everywhere, and even at restaurants, like they would speak to us in German, and the food was again more like influenced by like German Austria type of thing, which historically makes sense. But I just don't think people think of that. They think, oh, I'm going to go to Italy. I'm going to have pasta and pizza and like and gelato everywhere. It's going to be the same. And it's like, well, no, it's not. So, there is those local dishes that I think, if someone really wants to experience that, then they should really try that. Because again, what you get like where you are in Lake Como, you won't get that necessarily here where I am, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is very diverse here, and I love explaining that to people that have never been to Italy, or maybe just been here but not really didn't really go to many places. It's more than just that whole pasta and pizza thing. There's just an entire world of food with an explosion of flavors. So I think I think that should be explored more, especially like, okay, if I say that Como is known for its lake fish, try it, try it. It's not for me, but I think that everyone should at least try it. Say, hey, I went to Lake Como, I tried their local dish and I loved it. So it's definitely interesting to go and travel around and see that there is probably in your in your village, there's probably a food typical to that area, that no one would ever know about unless you actually went there and asked around for it. So it's really interesting the way that is.
Yeah, so we have a local dish that's, I guess, comes from Naples. It's pasta e fagioli, and that comes with like sometimes it's just shrimp, but sometimes it's actual more like seafood. So it's more like a stew, but it's like a seafood stew. So it's not soup. It's not very liquidy like bolognese would be. It's more like a thicker sort of stew because sometimes they add like I don't know the beans, the fagioli. That's what makes it a bit more like a thicker kind of stew, and it's delightful. And I've never had this before until I moved here. So I was like, oh, that's really nice. Like even like pasta with chickpeas. To me, that was like, what is that? I haven't come across many other stews here except for like minestrone, but like other than that, I think that's a really big thing here. And it's something that I kind of miss because I'm into soups. I love soups, right? So it's I do miss that here. They don't necessarily do the same kind of dishes, the same kind of things, but they're still, very interesting. So that's why I'm with you. I love to be like, what's the local dish? Tell me more because I'd like to try it. And you're trying a different food that you won't have, if everybody goes to Rome for cacio e pepe, great. But then go to somewhere else and try that local food. Don't go to like Como and say, I would like to try cacio e pepe
No,
because
don't do that.
I mean, you might be able to find it, but then are you
You'll
really
find it for
experiencing the
25
local?
euros a plate, huh?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It can be found. There is a really amazing pasta place in the center that recently opened up, and my gosh, I it's delicious, but I could cry at those prices. I mean, 25 euros for a lasagna. That's a little extreme. Yeah, it's delicious. I do recommend it to people that are not on a budget.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, come to think of it, I haven't really seen lasagna on that many menus in restaurants like where I am. I haven't really seen it. Like I think we think of lasagna as an Italian dish, but I haven't really come across many places or any that I can think of here that has lasagna on the menu.
Not really. You're right. You're right about that. You don't see it very often. You're right. But I mean, it's delicious at that restaurant, I will say. I've had it.
It's funny because they do sell the shells, like the pasta, the sheets in the store. You see them.
Yeah.
I don't see them like in restaurants. But anyway.
Yeah. You have to try nonna's. Nonna's lasagna is probably the best.
There you go. So now let's kind of talk about we've touched upon some of the things that people might encounter or some of the mistakes they might make when coming to Como. What are some of the ways you think they can avoid making those mistakes when coming, and how should they, what should they do to make sure that they're not making a mistake, if that makes sense?
That makes sense. I will say, okay, when traveling, I mean, hiccups are going to happen. That's all part of the dream. That's all part of the experience. I think with Como, the only problem, not necessarily a problem, the only thing that I can say here about a mistake that you can make is probably most likely with transportation, honestly. I think that's going to be the biggest struggle for someone that's coming here and spending like a week here relying on public transportation. So I think always just keep in mind that something may happen. Also, like with the train strikes, we've been having so many trains lately. Um, the buses, as I mentioned before, the buses just randomly stopping or being full, or something of that sort. So if you're a nervous traveler and you want to just avoid that, completely, I would recommend probably renting a car. Yeah, you may be stuck in traffic, but okay, at least you know that you're going to get home, you're not going to be stranded somewhere. So I think that's probably the number one key. And also, this isn't really a mistake, but I would say don't try to, just go to Bellagio and Varenna. I would recommend, I would recommend going to these little towns and kind of like, doing just spending a day there. I don't know, just trying to get familiar with the towns outside of the most touristic ones, because you'd be surprised at what you can find here. I didn't mention this before, but there is an activity that I love doing, especially in spring. It's called the Greenway Trail. Okay. And that is a trail that takes you from Colonno. So it's a very small town, and it takes you to Griante. It's about 10 kilometers of hiking. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Nothing extreme, nothing extreme, but it takes you through all these little villages along you're on the side of Menagio here. And it's very picturesque. You have views of the lake of the entire time. Okay. And you're going, actually, there's part of the trail is you're walking on the old Roman way. And so it's a path that used to lead travelers to it connected them to the countries north of the Alps. And so it's very historical. I mean, you're passing through all these hamlets. So again, these teeny tiny little villages. And you're also in the path of all the villas as well. So if you're wanting to maybe experience some of the villas, like Villa Palpianello, which is very famous, Villa Carlotta, Entremezzo, I would recommend this as an activity. So again, don't try to limit yourself as to what you can see in Como. It is very big, it's huge here, but try to divide it amongst other towns as well, because really you're just gonna fall in love with everything that you experience here. It's really lovely.
It really sounds exciting. Like, it sounds fantastic.
It's amazing. That Greenway Trail is just fantastic. I do it all the time. It's so beautiful to go through, because you're going through villages, but you're also going through nature. So you're going to see animals. You're going to go through the mountain. You're going to see olive trees. So it's just, you've got this entire, just entire, not complex. What do I want to say? it's really amazing as to everything that you're gonna see. And again, it's only 10 kilometers. So I do it from the morning, and by the afternoon, I'm having lunch on the lake somewhere, so it's really lovely. It's a fun activity for also for kids. It's easy to do. It's nothing treacherous. So it's great. It's a great activity.
Yeah, I'd say you get to see the most of it and on your own terms, and you get to enjoy the outdoors, right? Which is, I think,
Exactly. And yeah, Como is very outdoorsy. So again, it's a very luxurious place as well. And I know that. And some people come here and they just want to relax themselves. That is completely fine. There's amazing 5-star hotels on Lake Como, some of the best in the world, But there's various things for all types of people to do. If you want relaxing, there are spas. If you want hiking, for sportive people, there's just it's equipped with everything. You've got everything here.
so I gotta ask, have you ever run into anyone famous?
I'm always searching. I got close to George Clooney's house one time, but security's out there because what you can do, so you can rent a boat even without a license, and it's really affordable. If you have like a group of people, you can split the costs and you can easily do that. You can spend the day on the lake with your own boat. Like it's a really cool activity. Um, and so yeah, we tried to pull up to his house, but it's just like camera system, probably laser beams. I never found him. There are always people here. I know Taylor Swift, she's actually gonna buy a house here. There, yeah, full of famous people, but no, damn it, I've never run into one. I'm trying.
We've touched upon some of your favorite places, and you've given, I think, so many great tips. Is there anything else you think the visitors or potential visitors coming to Como should know about? Any last sort of words of wisdom for the potential traveler?
Let's see, words of wisdom. I say just really just come here and enjoy yourselves. I mean, it's it's so different from what you normally think about when people think of Italy. When people, the first thing that comes to mind maybe is Rome, Florence, Milan, but really, it's Lake Como is still not as known as it should be. I have to give this area a lot of credit because it is just so spectacular in terms of position, geographically, culturally. Like it's just it really is an amazing place to be. And so, like, if you are traveling to Milan, take that day trip and go to Como. Just do it. Just do it. I mean, even if you just stay maybe in the Como city, at least come here and maybe just learn about it. I mean, just know that there, well, also Alessandro Volta, the inventor of the battery, he's here from Como. He was born in Como, died in Como. There's also the Silk Museum because at one point Como was the leading producer of silk, and so there are a lot of silk shops here. And really beautiful silk. So there really is. If you take some time just to even study up on it, learn a little bit about it. I don't know, Instagram, TikTok. You can find that Como is actually a really dreamy place to be, and not only be but live here too. I mean, I get to say I live in Como. It's a dream come true living here. So I tell you, come here and enjoy yourselves and eat good food and go out on the lake and have a blast.
It sounds really interesting. Like, I don't know about the silk production there. That's something that, you don't really think of, right? Which again is going back to the point of going beyond just a tourist, let's take a picture here and like, walk around and, you know, I do think there is some element of, learning about the culture and discovering how different it is from Rome or Venice or Florence. Okay, well, thank you so much, Nikki, for sharing your insights and for giving our listeners lots of interesting and useful tips. Tell everyone where they can get in touch with you or they can follow you.
Yeah, well, if you're interested in seeing, yeah, I guess some of my photos from life in Italy, then you can follow me on Instagram. It's Nick in Italy. Trying to be like Emily in Paris, but I'm not quite there yet. You know, Maybe I should change my handle to Nick and Cole. See, oh, it could be.
Could be.
Yeah. So yeah, I usually just post about life, my life, trying to survive here in Italy. So you can find me on there if you're interested in learning more.
Great. So I'll make sure to link your Instagram to the show notes. So if anybody wants to know more about Como and your life in Italy, they can find you there. So thank you, Niki. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Oh, thank you. I hope everyone enjoyed and learned something. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
And this brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and review on whatever you're listening right now. We'll be back next week, so stay tuned.